Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
Okay, so I think everyone who is willing to join has joined now, and good to see a good number of participation. Actually, as a matter of fact, I would tell that this batch has been like really good because of the efforts of the Board of Studies that we are seeing lot of participants compared to the previous batch. This is a very good batch in terms of numbers that we are seeing so many people joining in. Really happy that you are interested and taking so much of efforts during the day. That is very much important. You may be having some other commitments in spite of which you are able to attend this, which shows your seriousness for the studies and seriousness for the subject. That's really nice. So GST is one subject which as you read it, okay, this is very practical subject because all of this what we are reading, you will actually apply it when you are into practice or before practice also in your articleship, you will apply these provisions. Unlike others like FEMA and things like that, you may get an opportunity to work on those modules or those things what you read or no, but this and income tax are mostly practical because you will actually face situations and you may have to go back to what we have dealt, what we have understood. Then you'll realize that what you understood now as a theoretical aspect and as a practical aspect, there's a lot of difference. So try to understand our concepts in such a manner that you practically apply it. Saying if we learn about supply today, you try to see if you can correlate it with the actual scenario because there'll be a lot of examples which I will share with you. Those examples will help you to understand. Now, those examples you have to connect it and bring it to your knowledge that okay, you will apply it, the theory and the practical aspect, and that then the subject becomes interesting. Once you like a subject, then reading that subject is a cakewalk. It becomes very easy for you. Okay. My voice, someone is saying it is very low. Is it clear and better now? Good. Okay, so we understood the basics of GST, basics of GST or basics of taxation in the previous classes. Now we will go to the main topic for today, which is supply under GST. Okay, so supply is a very detailed chapter. So the schedule is we have to cover it up in 3 days. Okay, three classes of that's why I mentioned the dates here, which is on the 26th, 1st, and the 3rd October. We will try to finish up in the 1st October itself. Hopefully, based on the questions what I get, the timing depends on that. So if you are able to cover it on the 1st, then we'll go to the next chapter on the 3rd itself, so that we have sufficient time to cover up all the chapters. Okay, but no compromise will be made in terms of your learning. Wherever you're getting stuck, your questions will be answered. So what will we cover today? We will cover what will we learn in this chapter. Okay, what will we learn? We will learn what is the taxable event under GST. What is the scope of supply? Okay, then there is something called a schedule. What is schedule 1, schedule 2, schedule 3? And then we will understand under supply, there is something called as a composite supply and there is something called as a mixed supply. So we will understand the composite supply, how is it taxed, and we will also understand a mixed supply, how it is taxed. Okay, so this is the broad spectrum of what we will cover in this chapter. We will understand the taxable event. Okay, very important because in any chapter, in any taxations, there has to be a taxable event. What is that taxable under event under GST? We will learn that. Then we will learn what is supply because we would have learned that GST is on supply, GST is on supply. Now, what is that supply? What is the law saying? What is the definition of supply? Then what are the schedules which are there under GST? Why are those schedules there? Why is it important? Should we learn those schedules? बिकॉज एक्ट ही हमको पढ़ना नहीं होता, अभी शेड्यूल कहाँ पढ़ेंगे, है ना? तो शेड्यूल पढ़ना, कैन वी जस्ट लीव इट ऑफ? क्या वो ऑप्शनल है या कंपलसरी है? दैट इज व्हाट वी विल लर्न अंडर schedules. We will understand the importance of schedules and what is there in it. Can we skip it or should we learn it? If I read the law, then schedules is there. No, schedules is just there as a schedule. It's not there in the act. It's a schedule. So should I read it? That is what we will learn there. Then understanding composite supply, how is it taxed? Understanding what is mixed supply and how is it taxed. So that is a broad spectrum. Now we will start with taxable event. Taxable event is any, what is a taxable event in any taxation? It is a taxable event. The definition itself is, it is a transaction or occurrence of an event that results in a tax consequence. So some trigger point, it is a trigger point which says that you do this thing, then we will levy X tax. If you earn money in Kaun Banega Crorepati, then we will levy income tax. If you do a sale transaction, okay, which is sale in my term, but in income tax terms, it is called transfer. Once you effect a transfer, then capital gain will get attracted. Once you manufacture, then excise duty will be paid. So these are the events which is called a consequence or a transaction that results in a tax consequence. Any transaction or occurrence that results in a tax consequence is a taxable event. So we will see what is this taxable event, what was there under the earlier laws, and then it will help us to distinguish how is it different under GST. Under pre-GST regime, under excise duty, we have learned what all were the pre-taxation, pre-GST taxation, right? So now under those taxation regimes, what was the taxable event? Under excise duty, entry number 84, this is the reference of the constitution. But the taxable event was that a taxable event for a manufacturer is, for excise duty is manufacture of goods. So once you manufacture, excise duty is levied. So how it used to happen, you used to manufacture continuously. So will you pay excise duty at the time of manufacture itself? No, the taxable event is manufacture, but the payment of tax was deferred until you clear it from your factory gate. So the taxable event used to be the manufacture. So once you manufacture, you are liable to pay excise duty, but the taxation used to get deferred till you clear it from your factory gate. So once you clear it from your factory gate, you had to pay duty, but nevertheless, the taxable event was manufacture. Customs duty, under customs duty, which is there even now, the taxable event is import and export of goods. Once you do an import, then you have to pay customs duty. So if you have to pay customs duty, you have to import. If you do not import, you don't pay any customs duty. Once you import, you have to check the customs tariff rate, check whether that product is covered there, find out the rate, and then pay the customs duty. How do you pay customs duty? Through filing a document called as bill of entry. So you have to file a document called as bill of entry and pay the customs duty on import of goods. What was the taxable event for service tax? Service tax, again, the constitutional reference is there. The taxable event for service tax was rendering of a service. So once you render any service, then you have to pay service tax. And then similarly, under sales tax, what was the taxable event? It was an event when you transfer the ownership of your goods. You have sold something, which means you have transferred the ownership. Once you transfer the ownership, that is a point of time when you had to pay sales tax or VAT. Clear this? PPT of the first chapter it has been shared, but I think it is not uploaded. I will talk to them and I'll get it shared. Correct. So when we read the taxation, when we cleared our CA, we had to read all of these taxes. You are being lucky enough that you don't have to read all of this. So this page is there to just cheer you up, saying that you are relieved from reading manufacture, you're relieved from reading excise duty, you're relieved from reading customs. Customs you have to read. Service tax and VAT you don't have to read, because all of this is now replaced by GST. Now, what is the taxable event under GST? The taxable event under GST is only one event. There is no multiplicity of events there. It is only one event for all types of traders or any taxable person. So there we used to call manufacturer, service provider, and importer. Here it is just a taxable person. So any person who is supposed to register or who is already registered, both of them are called as a taxable person. A taxable person, when he makes a supply transaction, let it be manufacturer, let it be service provider, both of them will do a supply, right? So once they get into a transaction of supply, then they have to pay GST. So the taxable event under GST is supply. The entire value of supply of goods or services are charged in an integrated manner. So you don't have to bifurcate that a manufacturer is manufacturing goods, then he will pay GST, and then once he sells, again he will pay GST. No, all of that, it has been integrated. Let it be manufacturer, let it be a service provider, let it be anyone, they will do a supply. So once they do supply, then GST is triggered. So the taxable event under GST is supply. Residuary power means balance power. What we had read in the constitutional discussion, that which is not there in the state list and in the union list is there in the residuary list. जो स्टेट के लिस्ट में नहीं है, सेंट्रल के लिस्ट में भी नहीं है, जो बैलेंस बचता है उसे कहते हैं रेसिड्यूरी लिस्ट. ओके, सो हमने अब तक समझा है कि टैक्सेबल इवेंट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग होता था एक्साइज ड्यूटी में, सर्विस प्रोविजन होता था सर्विस टैक्स में, और सेल ऑफ गुड्स जब मैं टाइटल ट्रांसफर करता हूं तब सेल्स टैक्स या वैट लगता था. अभी जीएसटी में टैक्सेबल इवेंट क्या है? सप्लाई. अगर मैं सप्लाई करता हूं तो वो टैक्सेबल इवेंट है. तो मैं जब भी सप्लाई करूंगा तब मुझे जीएसटी पे करना है. तो फिर सप्लाई के बारे में इतना बोल रहे हैं तो सप्लाई का डेफिनेशन भी बड़ा रहेगा. तो वी विल गेट इनटू द डेफिनेशन ऑफ सप्लाई और समझेंगे व्हाट इज अ सप्लाई, व्हाट आर द कंपोनेंट्स ऑफ सप्लाई, व्हाट आर द एसेंशियल रिक्वायरमेंट्स ऑफ द सप्लाई, एंड देन सी कि हम वहां पे शेड्यूल को, हाउ कैन वी ब्रिंग इन द रेफरेंस टू द शेड्यूल्स इन द डेफिनेशन ऑफ सप्लाई. I have reproduced here the section itself because the section of supply, the definition generally is there under clause section 2, subsection 1, subsection 2, both sare sections hai which gives the definition, but the scope of supply or the meaning of supply is so wide that usko section 2 mein nahi rakhe, uske liye alag section diya gaya hai. We have a separate section for defining the supply. Section 7 gives you the meaning and scope of supply. Okay, so section 7 is the section which gives you the meaning and scope of supply. Okay, so we will read through the section and try to understand it part by part once we read the section completely. Supply includes, section 7 says definition of supply, it says supply includes. Firstly, when it says includes, here only we have to first pause and understand what does it mean by includes. They could have said supply means, but why did they use supply includes? Uska bhi kuch logical reasoning hai, wherein if there is a definition which starts with includes, it means it's an inclusive definition, which means what is supply, what I and you generally understand, that is definitely supply. But apart from that, it includes the following. So this is called as a inclusive definition, wherein what generally you understand supply, that is supply. Apart from that, this supply term includes the following things. So that's the relevance of this word includes. When had they said means, then it will mean only what is defined but not what is generally understood. जो आप generally understand करते हो वो means में आ जाएगा, लेकिन जब includes लिखा गया है तब जब हम जनरल नॉर्मल पैरेलेंस में जो समझते हैं वो भी इंक्लूडेड है, उसके अलावा जो फॉलोइंग थिंग्स कहे गए हैं वो स्पेसिफिकली इंक्लूडेड है. ठीक है. So supply includes all forms of supply of goods or services or both. Supply includes all forms of supply of goods or services or both, such as, it includes all forms, but they give a list also. Firstly, they say it includes all forms of supply of goods or services or both, such as sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease, or disposal, made or agreed to be made for a consideration by a person in the course or furtherance of business. So 7 starts with inclusive definition, and 7.1, 7.1, 7.1a, 7.2, 7.3 will get into, but now we are still at 7.1. 7.1 says supply includes 7.1a all forms of supply of goods or services or both, such as sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease, or disposal, made or agreed to be made. Okay, either it could be supplied today or it could be decided, agreed that I will supply it later on. That's why it says supply made or agreed to be made for a consideration. There has to be a consideration. Whatever you're supplying, for that there has to be a consideration, and it should be by a person in the course or furtherance of business. Two important conditions यहाँ पे देखने को मिलता है, which is highlighted, is it is for a consideration and it should be in the course or furtherance of business. ठीक है. So if we read just 7.1a itself, what do we understand? We will go through each of these terms separately. We will understand the meanings of this, but understand the overall thing. बार्टर मतलब जो पुराने जमाने में था, आप मुझे चावल की बोरी दो, मैं आपको गेहूं की बोरी दूंगा. So barter is when we exchange some things with wherein there is no monetary consideration involved. That is a barter. Okay. What do we understand? Important terms here is supply includes all forms of supply. It could be of goods or services, and specific instances are given, such as ka matlab, these could be the 8 things which can happen in a supply. It could be a sale transaction, it could be a transfer, it could be a barter, it could be an exchange, license, rental, lease, or disposal. Now, this could be made now or it could be made in the future, agreed to be made in the future. It should be for a consideration. If I supply something, if I give you something, if I am a supplier of rice, I supply rice and I do not collect consideration from you, then it is not a supply, because supply should be with consideration. The first term here is for a consideration. So if there is no consideration, then there is no supply. It should be for a consideration, which is very important. Made or agreed to be made for a consideration by a person in the course or furtherance of business. If it is not his business and if he's doing it as a one-time activity, then also it's not a supply. Supply should be for a consideration and it should be in the course or furtherance of business. Difference between barter and exchange also we will come. There is some difference. How can license be supplied? It is not how can license be supplied. So what we understand is different. What the law says is a different thing. So what our general understanding, it is supply. We think only if it is a sale, it's a supply. But to keep that understanding out so that there is no confusion, because if one person understands this way, another person understands in some other way, then they'll be prone to litigation, because as a taxpayer, you will tell it is not supply, but the tax authorities will tell it's a supply. To avoid all such things, they have said specifically that supply includes the following 8 forms. So if they have said this includes, it includes. Because what happens logically is in the license also there is a consideration involved. There is some kind of a exchange of services which is happening. That's why In case of a license activity also, there is a supply which is involved. Disposal means disposing it off. You had your old clothes, you dispose them off. You had old machinery, you have given it off. That is the meaning of disposal. In the course or furtherance of business, we will understand the definition of business also. But if you see their study material, that's one important point which I want to bring. There is a important definitions, right? Before getting into the chapter itself, they mentioned the important definitions. If we just go through the definitions, it may not be correlated. So we will go through those definitions after we understand this, so that then we are easily able to connect the definition with the actual section. There is a difference between exchange and partner, Meena. So that's the reason they have used both the terms. Difference between rental and license, there is difference between that also. Okay, since you are very much excited to understand those terms, so we'll get into those terms and then come back to supply. Is it fine? So that everybody's question is on this aspect, saying that what is the meaning of these 8 terms? Even though I had planned to take it up after understanding the definition of supply, but I think that will be a blockage since you want to learn the meaning of these things. Okay. So at least till 7.1a, we understood that supply includes all forms of supply, such as these 8 terms. We will get into these 8 terms, but these things also should be for consideration. If there is no consideration, there is no supply. It should be for a consideration and it should be in the course or furtherance of business. तो हमने यहाँ तक क्या समझा है? हमने ये समझ लिया है कि supply includes all forms of supply. Supply definition includes transfer and sale of property comes under transfer loan. तो हमने यहाँ पे समझ गए कि सप्लाई जो है, सप्लाई गुड्स का हो सकता है या सर्विसेज का हो सकता है. क्या क्या चीज का हो सकता है? गुड्स, सर्विसेज या दोनों मिल सकते हैं. गुड्स और सर्विस दोनों मिलके भी आप सप्लाई कर सकते हो. और किस तरह से आप सप्लाई करेंगे? सप्लाई करेंगे आप इधर सेल करोगे, ट्रांसफर करोगे, बार्टर करोगे, एक्सचेंज, लाइसेंस, रेंटल, लीज और डिस्पोजल. सो ये 8 फॉर्म्स ऑफ सप्लाई है. और सप्लाई में इंपॉर्टेंट कंडीशन 7.1a में क्या बोलता है कि इट शुड बी मेड और अग्री टू बी मेड और कंसिडरेशन. जो आप सप्लाई कर रहे हो एक कंसिडरेशन के लिए होना चाहिए. एंड इट शुड बी इन द कोर्स और फर्दरेंस ऑफ बिजनेस. तो 2 चीजें इंपॉर्टेंट है. It should be for a consideration and it should be in the course or furtherance of business. So we'll understand firstly ये 8 forms terms क्या है. उसके पहले goods और services भी बोला था, उसका भी meaning समझ लेते हैं first. What is goods? Goods is defined under this GST law as goods means every kind of movable property. It includes all kinds of movable property and it excludes money and securities. It excludes money and securities. So goods means every kind of movable property. It excludes money and securities and specifically includes. First तो आपको बता दिया गया कि definition of goods में goods includes every kind of movable property and it excludes money and securities. So if you are dealing with any money, जो आप पैसे देते हो, exchange करते हो, you do go to the bank, withdraw your check, right? That is all transactions in money. So if you're dealing with money transactions, it is not liable to GST. And any kind of securities, you buy shares, sell shares, that is also not liable to GST. Okay. But then you may have a question, sir. When I go to my broker and buy something, he is charging me GST. Yes, he is charging you GST, but he is not charging you GST on the value of securities. He is charging the GST on the value of his brokerage. So I never said GST is not there on the brokerage. GST is not there on the securities because the definition excludes money and securities. So securities are excluded, but the brokerage for buying these securities, that is the brokerage charges, that is liable to GST. But on the securities values, we don't pay any GST. So goods means every kind of movable property, excludes money and securities, but it includes specifically actionable claim and growing crops, grass and things attached to or forming part of the land which are agreed to be severed before supply or under a contract of supply. So goods means every kind of movable property, ठीक है? Because immovable property है तो वो goods नहीं रहेगा. First of all, it goods covers only every kind of movable property and it excludes money and securities, but includes specifically actionable claim. Actionable claim matlab, what is the meaning of actionable claim? Say you have to get some money from somebody, you have given him and you have to get it back. How will you get it? You will get through this actionable claim because you have a right to claim that money. That is called as actionable claim. So definition of goods includes actionable claim. Suppose एक lottery ticket है. You have bought a lottery ticket. Now you don't have lottery tickets so very common. Earlier there used to be lottery tickets that you buy a lottery ticket and if your number clicks, we will get the prize. How will you get the prize? Just by giving one piece of paper. That's because it has a right saying that whoever is the winner has to give that ticket and give that lottery ticket. And if your number is there matching with us, you will get the prize money. How do you enforce that? It's a legal term that you give that lottery ticket and you can get that money because you have a right to claim over it. That is what is called as actionable claim. Okay. Second part is growing crops, grass and things attached to or forming part of the land which are agreed to be severed. Matlab, there is a land, okay, which has growing crops. Now you have entered into agreement that you will enter into contract to lease this land for 2 seasons of mangoes. So it means that you are interested in that mangoes, not in that land. Land is only becoming an instrument, but whenever there are growing crops, grass, you have agreed to buy those mangoes indirectly. That's why though they are also treated as goods. That's why they say growing crops, grass and things attached to or forming part of the land which are agreed to be severed before supply. Severed matlab cut karna. You have agreed to cut it before supply or under a contract of supply. That is also goods. Okay, that is the definition of goods. Now let's go to the definition of services. I will take up your questions once we finish this slide. Goods we understood. Now services. Services means anything other than goods. Very simple. What is immovable property? What is not a movable property is an immovable property. We have read this definition under Transfer of Property Act, right? So they have used a similar definition. They've kept it actually बहुत broad कर दिया कि आपको, if somebody asks you a question, what is services? You can easily write it. What is not goods is services. But can you write the same for goods? What is not services is goods? No. It becomes a circular reference. Somewhere some conclusion has to get arrived at. So goods has been specifically defined. They didn't just simply say that goods means anything other than services. They've said goods means every kind of movable property, but services means anything other than goods. Okay. And it excludes money and securities. Goods also exclude money and securities. Services also excludes money and securities. So goods and services both excludes money and securities. Money और securities के ऊपर आपको कुछ GST नहीं भरना पड़ेगा. But it includes specifically activities relating to use of money. So whatever activities you are engaging in by using the money, then it is included. Activities relating to use of money, like anything which you use money for, or conversion of money by cash or by any other mode from one form currency denomination to another for which a separate consideration is charged. When you convert your money, if you convert your money into demand draft, both money and demand draft are also money, but for that conversion, for converting that cash to demand draft, there is a bank charges. That is included as a service. You exchange your Indian currency for foreign currency. ठीक है, आप जब यूएस जाओगे तब आपको यूएस डॉलर्स चाहिए, तो गिविंग दिस आईएनआर एंड टेकिंग द यूएस डॉलर्स, तो उस कन्वर्जन के लिए Conversion of money by cash or any other mode made from one currency to another. जब one currency to another currency में convert होता है, on that whatever separate consideration is charged, that is included as services, but the money per se and securities are not covered. Clear? Now I can take up your questions. If we dispose free of cost, still we need to pay GST. We'll come back to disposal. Activities by a person other than individual, I'll come to that. Your a person can be company, HUF, firm, AOP or anything. Yes, it can be anything. Person, it includes company also. जैसे हमारे income tax में person का definition है. Person does not get restricted to individual itself. It gets covered everybody. So that's why they didn't use the word individual. They've used the word person. मतलब it could be a individual, HUF, AOP, private limited, LLP. Everything is covered under the definition of person. Debentures, Securities Contract Regulation Act defines securities as shares, bonds, preference shares, and debentures. So debentures also are covered under the definition of securities. Why bank get GST from bank account? No, bank will not get GST. Bank will collect GST for the charges which it levies. Although money and security are outside the purview of GST, so why central government imposed GST on credit card payments? So on credit card payments, only on the credit card charges we pay the GST, not on credit card payments. So there is a, when you pay a credit card through your banks, then the banker collects some charges on that GST is levied. In Vakil is given service, which means a lawyer is giving service. He is providing service. So supply GST is under, yes, it will be supply, but there is something called as a forward charge and reverse charge, which we will learn in the next chapter. So that activity is covered under reverse charge, but it's a taxable supply. Tax कोई ना कोई पे करेगा, supplier पे नहीं करेगा, receiver पे करेगा, लेकिन lawyer का services भी taxable service है. Although money and security outside purview, why central government impose GST? Don't repeat your questions. I will go through your questions. What is BR? Bank guarantee. Bank guarantee cannot be said as an action. You can say from the banker's perspective that he has a right to recover that money from the person who's giving you the bank guarantee. So there it is. But what are you saying BR? Can you please explain it? Land is neither goods nor services. Correct. Land is neither goods nor services. And land is also excluded from GST for another reason also, which is that it is there under Schedule 3, which we will read. If it is there in Schedule 3, then it is not liable to GST. Software is goods or services. Software can be goods or it can be services. Like if you buy a Tally software, right? Tally software is a off-the-shelf software. आप किसी के दुकान में जाओगे, you can buy it. So off-the-shelf product is goods, but if it is customized, then it is service. Bills receivable. Okay. Somebody asking bills receivable. Yes, bills receivable is one of a form of actionable claims.
Sir, what is the significance whether it is goods or service? GST we are paying, whether it will have any effect, sir? Whether it is goods or service, GST rate is there. We are paying it. Is there any need for bifurcating it goods or service? Whether it will have any effect on payment of tax?
Right. So there is something called as classification. Okay. So classification decides the rate of goods or rate of services. So if you classify something which is, you're thinking it's a service, but GST has classified it as goods, then it is goods, and then you have to pay the GST on the basis of going to the classification of goods. So to determine the classification, to decide the nature of payment, you have to determine whether it's goods or services. Even though GST is composite, but still the rate for services itself are so many. You will have different rates, and for goods also you will have different rates. So for identification and for classification, deciding whether it's goods or services is important.
But if for both the same rate means what is the effect?
Effect may be the same, but correct classification gives clarity. So you have to classify it correctly, then proceed.
Okay.
सर्विसेज का एक्टिविटी रिलेटिंग टू समझ में नहीं आया. ओके, एक्टिविटीज रिलेटिंग टू यूज ऑफ मनी. अगर आप मनी को यूज करते हो तो किसी चीज के लिए जो यूज करते हो उसे सर्विस कहा गया है. और जब आप कन्वर्जन ऑफ मनी करते हो, मनी तो एक्सक्लूडेड है ही है, लेकिन आप मनी को जब कन्वर्ट करते हो तब उसके लिए जो चार्जेस लगता है उसके ऊपर जीएसटी तो पेएबल है. Sir, in 278 council members, total are 33. I am not sure. All the states are the members. So I will check and come back to you on this. Second point of goods includes is growing crops, grass and things attached to and forming part of the land, which means if you are entering into a contract with the buyer for selling your land, and on this land there are growing crops. Matlab, growing crops means if there is any farming activity happening in that land, or if there are any huge area of land where you have kind of trees growing in, and you know that seasonal trees will grow in, and instead of saying that selling those things, you have entered into a contract that you will take a lease for this land. Whatever crops grows, it's yours. You pay me this much of money. So such contracts are transaction of goods. Even though it may look services, for GST purposes, it is goods because the ultimate objective is to sell those fruits which are growing on your trees. Okay. Yes, tree as such is an immovable property, but if the tree is cut or if the fruits from the tree is removed, that is a movable property and that becomes goods. Livestock is also included, yes, because nothing is excluded. So livestock also can be under the definition of goods. Okay. Very nice. So we are clear with the definition of goods and services. Now we'll get into the 8 terms, right? What are the first terms? Sale. What is sale transaction? Sale किसे कहते हैं generally? When I sell something, I have something and I've given it to you. When I give it to you, can I tell I gave it to you, give it to me back? I cannot say so because I have given it to you and the title or the ownership is transferred to the other person. When the ownership is transferred and title is transferred, it is a sale transaction. That's where the definition of sale comes in. Sale means transfer of ownership of and title to the property from one person to another person for a price. So when I transfer the ownership and title of this property for a price, of course, for a price, because we are under 7(1)(a), wherein all of these 8 conditions should be for a consideration. If it is for no consideration, suppose मैं मेरी book जो है एक लिखा हूँ, I bought it for 500 rupees. Now I give it to you as a friend and I don't collect any consideration क्योंकि मैं gift दे रहा हूँ. So will there be any GST on it? It will not be there because there is no consideration on this supply. After giving it to you, can I ask it back from you? Still, I cannot because there is a transfer of title. कि ये book का आप owner हो. If you have become an owner, even if you have not paid, I do not have a right to claim it back from you. Okay, you gift some article to somebody, can you take it back? You cannot take it back. There is a transfer of title without consideration. So it is a sale, but it is not supply because sale per se is that you have transferred the title the consideration is not received, so it is not a supply for the purpose of GST. What is sale under the Contract Act, Sale of Goods Act? Sale of Goods Act defines sale as a contract where the seller transfers or agrees to transfer the property in goods to the buyer for a price. When you agree to transfer the property in the goods to a buyer, matlab, he becomes the ultimate owner, then it is called as a sale completion. Sale of laptop by a dealer to a customer or anything what you buy from the shop is an example of sale. What are the questions we got here? Restaurant serving food to customer is a service. We'll get to know that. Xerox shop owner taking Xerox is a supply of service, right? These are services. Okay. Now we understood sale. Next is transfer. What is transfer? To convey or remove from one place to another. Just to removing from one place to another place, it is a transfer. Correct? What is transfer? Transfer, as we understand, you're transferred from one state to another state. A person who's working, he is transferred from Delhi to Mumbai. So it's a transfer. Similarly, in terms of goods, because we are dealing with goods and services, if there is any transfer of goods from one place to another place, that is an example of transfer. That is the meaning of transfer. Example, you have a warehouse and you have a showroom. If you transfer from warehouse to showroom, it's a transfer. Is GST leviable on that? We are not yet reaching that point. We are still saying that it's a supply because there are certain other conditions to be satisfied whether tax is payable or no. We are still in the first limb. We are only deciding whether it's a transfer or no. So we are only deciding whether it's a transfer. Yes, it is a transfer. You are transferring goods from your warehouse to showroom. It's a transfer. Wherein it will be treated as a supply. Third is barter. Everybody is saying sale is included. Then what is barter? Barter means exchange of goods or services for other goods or services instead of using money. Example is given here. A CA provides consultancy services to a doctor, and doctor has to pay consideration. I am charging him, but instead of paying consideration, he provides me his services to me. He provides healthcare services. So we don't exchange any money. We only exchange the service. I provide CA service. He provides the doctor service. That's the exchange of some transaction without money. So that's an example of a barter transaction. Sir, but barter you mentioned and you're mentioning exchange also. Exchange is different. Exchange is an act of giving or taking one thing for another. थोड़ा बड़ा exchange की तरह barter की तरह दिखता है because in barter also you give one thing and take one thing, but the difference is apart from barter there is some consideration also involved. So if you sell your old vehicle and get new vehicle, तो आपको नई vehicle without extra पैसे मिल जाएगी? नहीं मिलेगी. You have to pay some extra amount. So you give your old vehicle plus give 20,000 rupees, you will get a new vehicle. That is the example of exchange. Similar to barter, but some monetary consideration is involved. Okay.
Sir, can you explain transfer one time? Your voice is breaking.
Okay. So what is transfer is transferring. Now this remote control is there over here. From here, I am transferring it to here. Okay. That is a simple example of transfer. So in terms of business, how is transfer relevant? When I transfer something from my godown to my showroom, when I transfer something within the branches, I have a head office in Bangalore and I have a branch in Mumbai. So when I transfer some things from my head office to branch office, that is an example of transfer. To convey or remove from one place to another is a transfer. So if I have a branch here and I will give it to other branch, that is also an example of transfer. So, but there you will not give any consideration. Yes, because it's a Branch transfer, I will not give consideration. Will it form under the definition of supply? 7(1)(a) definition, it will not supply, but it will fall under the further definitions. But we have to understand the meaning of transfer. This is called as transfer.
Thank you, sir. Got it, sir.
In transfer, only place is changed, no ownership. Of course, your ownership is not mentioned under transfer because generally you do a transfer within the same entity, right? Now, within a family, if you give your laptop to your brother, okay, will you take consideration? Will you say title is getting transferred? Because both of you will hold the title. Similarly, in case of a transfer, you will transfer within your own entity. So both of you are jointly having the title. So that's why there's no mention of title under the definition of transfer. What is the difference between barter and exchange? As we had explained, barter is giving something, getting something. Exchange is giving something, getting something, plus paying something else. You're paying something and exchanging it. That is the meaning of exchange. Transfer is temporary or permanent? Transfer is permanent. It is not, nothing is temporary. Sale also is permanent. Transfer also is permanent itself. When you do stock transfer, you have to understand definition of transfer from a business perspective. That when will a business do a transfer? I will transfer for goods from my warehouse to the showroom because the showroom has to sell it. Okay. Once the showroom wants it, then I will transfer it and they will sell it. They will not tell me to transfer it to return it back, right? They want to do a business, so they will transfer. So the transfer also is a permanent one. In barter, there is no use of money. How can we pay GST? We'll come to it because that's a very good question on valuation, saying that on what value will we pay? We will come to the valuation and understand that what value we will pay under the barter transaction. Provide one more example of GST under barter. Okay. Now, if you're buying a house, okay, you will buy a house and in exchange of it, okay, you are a cement dealer, you'll provide cement to the builder. You're saying that, okay, for all the building, I will provide you cement, you give me one flat. That is an example of barter again. Okay, we understood these 4 terms, still 4 more terms to be gone. So we'll understand that also. We understood sale, transfer, barter, exchange. Now we'll understand license, disposal, rental, and lease. What is license? License is a very strange definition. Okay, it means that a permission which are granted by a competent authority to engage in a business or occupation. It's a permission granted by a competent authority to engage in a business or occupation or in an activity which is otherwise unlawful. Okay, so you are making an unlawful transaction lawful through the license agreement. So you are giving a permission to somebody to use something which he should ideally not use, but you are giving him a permission to use. So importance is the permission which is granted. Now you have a property, permission to enter and use the property is a license. I have a piece of land, land is immovable property. Now I'm giving permission to you to come and park your car here. So is it a immovable property then? No, because land is immovable property. Now the permission which I'm giving you to come and use it, did I enter into an agreement to sell that land? No. Did I enter into a agreement saying that, okay, I've registered this place for you? I've not done that also. So can you enter my land? It is actually illegal. You cannot enter it. But because of my permission, I've given you this permission to come and park your car. This unlawful activity is given a permission. That's an example of a license. That's when it's a license, when I give you a license to come and park your car at this place. So permission to enter and use the property is a license agreement. Then disposal. Disposal means sale, pledge, or giving away or consumption of any disposition of a thing. Disposal is sale or transfer, but property does not possess the merchantable warranty. What is this? Sale ke definition is linked to disposal, saying that when I sell something, when I pledge or give away something, but it does not have a merchantable warranty. अगर मैं disposal, generally what we understand, dispose कर दिया गया, मेरे पास laptop था, I've disposed it off. It is equivalent to sale, I'm giving it off. खराब हो गया, so you cannot come back to me because I have disposed it off. If I'm disposing it off, even if you don't like it, you cannot return it to me. Even if it is getting spoiled, you cannot return it to me because I'm disposed it off. A company had a big stock of laptops. They wanted to buy new sets of laptops. They've disposed it off. They've disposed it off by giving it to a charitable organization. Now, few laptops will work, few laptops will not work. The charitable organization cannot come and tell that no, what laptops you gave, it's not working. Because I have disposed it off. If you don't like it, throw it off. You cannot come back to the seller because there is no, it does not possess any merchantable warranty. इसका वारंटी नहीं मिलेगा आपको, इसीलिए उसे डिस्पोजल कहते हैं. सो डिस्पोजल इज ऑल्सो वन काइंड ऑफ सप्लाई. सर लेकिन डिस्पोजल में कंसिडरेशन तो इन्वॉल्व नहीं होगा. Consideration part will come later. Is it a supply? Yes, it's a supply. It is one leg of the supply. If there is a consideration, then it will fulfill the condition of disposal, a condition of supply. Otherwise, there are other legs which we will come into. Rental, arrangement to rent something. If you are renting something, it could be a movable property or immobile property. It is still a rental services. Renting of car, renting of machinery, those are all rentals. Lease, to make a legal agreement by which money is paid in order to use land, building, a vehicle, or a piece of equipment for an agreed period of time. Okay, so when you give something for the other person to use for a certain period of time, that is an example of lease. Lease is where possession is transferred along with the right to use property. I'm giving you a land. Okay, I'm giving you the possession. Possession मतलब उसके अंदर occupy करने का right. You can go and occupy that place. That is a right of possession and along with the right to use. So a possession is transferred and the right to use that is transferred, but the title is not transferred. If you transfer the title, it becomes sale transaction. But in case of a lease, you are not transferring the title. You are only transferring the possession and the right to use that property. Okay. License, जो हमने यहाँ पे पढ़ा था, license is similar to lease except that possession is not transferred. In license, what happens? Tally license I give you. You can use the software, but you cannot reproduce it. I'm not transferring the complete know-how of this. I'm only giving you a license to use it. So that's why it's a transfer of the something without the possession. That is a license agreement. If I give off the possession, if I give off the title, then it's a sale. Okay. As per Schedule 2. Why Schedule 2 is relevant? Because Schedule 2 talks about classification. In 8 चीजों में या other transactions also, what is it? Is it supply of goods or supply of services will be dealt in Schedule 2. And Schedule 2 says that license, lease, rental, these three things with or without transfer of right to use is covered under supply of service. These are covered under supply of service. So license is a service, rental is a service, and lease is a service. Clear? So we have covered the 8 terms. We'll take up your questions here. Merchantable warranty matlab warranty which is for the merchantable use. So if I give a new laptop, if I buy a new laptop, it has all the features in it and I can go for a merchantable warranty. But if it is for a non-business use, or if it is not into my business and I'm just disposing it off, that is, I'm not giving you the gap warranty for it. That is a merchantable warranty. Does Microsoft license come under this? Yes, Microsoft license come under the definition of license. Liquor license can be an example of this. Liquor license can be there, but liquor license, we have some clarification on that. So we will not confuse it. But your understanding is right that even liquor license gets covered under this license. Driving license, no. Driving license is not license under supply. It's a term given by the transport department. Right? You have a right to drive vehicle, but that is not covering under supply. That's a government service. Like gun license to use, order permission without permission usage. Yeah, you can say so. But there is no consideration which is involved when you take something from the government. If there is that I have a gun and I'm giving it to you, right? I am the ownership. Now I'm giving it to use. That could be an example of license. Why you write unlawful? Because if I don't give you that permission, then you are entering to this without my permission. That is unlawful. So if you enter my land with my confirmation, with my consent, with my permission, then it is a proper license. But if something is which is otherwise unlawful, which means when you have entered my property without my permission, then I cannot call it as license. That's called as trespassing. And I have a trespassing, means you have come to my property without permission and I can take actions against you. That is trespassing. Now, if you take the permission, then which was otherwise lawful becomes normal because I have given you the permission. Which one? डिस्पोजल. ओके, डिस्पोजल का मतलब है कि जब मैं किसी चीज को डिस्पोज कर देता हूं, मतलब किसी चीज को मैं छोड़ देता हूं. ओके, बाय गिविंग अवे, दे देता हूं यूज करने के लिए, कंजम्पशन के लिए डिस्पोज कर देता हूं, उसे डिस्पोजल कहते हैं. एक सेकेंड चीज डिस्पोजल में क्या होती है कि उसका मैं राइट नहीं लेता हूं, उसका मैं सही यूज होता है नहीं होता है उसका गारंटी में नहीं देता हूं, उसे डिस्पोजल कहते हैं. What is your example, Niketana? Does license given for monopoly company, like you're giving them a permission? Now, when you're talking license over here, the general license are the right given by the government. That is not the thing over here. Here it is a license to use some goods. That is the license what we are referring here. Or for using some property. That is the license. डिस्पोजेबल केस में जनरली कंसिडरेशन नहीं होता है. Can we say franchisee comes under license? Yes, we can say so, right? Because your franchisee is using your brand name, which otherwise, if you don't give him permission, he will not. It will be unlawful. So you are giving him the right to use your brand. So yes, franchisee can get covered under license. Okay, so these are the definition of these 8 terms. Now we'll go back to our definition of 7.1 and we'll understand further what is the definition of supply. So we have to impose GST on rental agreement or on arrangement. Rental agreement, we may have to charge GST, But if you have seen your house, on your house agreement, there is no GST, because on residential rental, there is an exemption, but on commercial rental, GST is payable. Difference between rent and license. Rent is you're arranging something for the other person to use it. License is permitting the other person to use it, which is otherwise lawful. But in rental, it doesn't become unlawful. You are doing that on a regular basis. It is known to the public at large, but license, it is not known. It is done as a mutual agreement between yourself and the customer. That's the license. Yeah, rent and lease look similar. Rent is arranging to rent something, but lease is, for lease we could say it is for mostly immobile property, and rental we could say for it is for movable property. Tushar Sharma, what is your question? I did not understand. You're saying how GST is applied if it is in case of transfer, who is getting goods is same as giver of service. Correct. So in that case, we have something called as Schedule 1, wherein there it says even if there is no consideration, the supplier has to pay the GST and receiver will get the credit. So if a branch is transferring to its head office, then who is the person who has initiated the transfer? Branch has initiated. So branch will pay the GST and the head office will claim the GST. Okay. But the rent of house, we say there is lease agreement for renting a shop, right? It is a term which is interchangeably used, but it's actually license. In all of these cases, it is a license or a lease agreement itself. There's nothing called as a rental agreement. Rent generally is agreeing to rent out something, and rent out something which is a kind of a movable property itself. Okay. So now once we have understood these 8 terms, let us go back to our definition of supply. We were under this, wherein we said that supply includes all forms of supply of goods or services or both, such as sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease, or disposal. Now you will understand this better because you know the meaning of these terms. Supply includes all forms of supply of goods or services such as sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease, or disposal, made or agreed to be made for a consideration. So these 8 terms we've understood. Now with these 8 terms, if there is a consideration and if it is in the course of furtherance of business, it's a supply. Okay. Now these 8 terms, few of them we definitely know that it will be without consideration, like transfer, disposal. These will be without consideration. So why have they included here? We will get to know when we read this point C, saying that why those 8 terms are included and still actually excluded because there is no consideration, because in point C it will get covered. So 7.1a we understood. Now 7.1 AA. 7.1 AA says that the activities or transactions by a person. This is again still supply. So we understood first leg of supply. Now we're going to the next leg. Supply includes the activities or transactions by a person other than an individual to its members or constituents or vice versa for cash, deferred payment, or other valuable consideration. Supply includes, we'll read it again, the activities or transactions by a person other than an individual to its members or constituents or vice versa for cash, deferred payment, or other valuable consideration. Matlab, whatever services are provided by somebody who is not an individual to its members. Who will provide services to its members? It is an amended definition to cover up the provisions of providing services by a club or a association. When a club or association provides services to its members, okay, for cash or for deferred payment or other valuable consideration, that is also supply. Why is this amendment there? A है, B है, फिर बीच में A कैसे आया? मतलब जब इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया था तब नहीं था, बाद में इंक्लूड किया गया है. So when it was introduced, when GST was introduced, there was 7(1)A, then 7(1)B, but 7(1)AA was through an amendment. Now, why did they bring this amendment? There is a case which was going on called as Calcutta Club case, wherein the Supreme Court decided that when you are having a club or association, you have your own members and you're providing services to your own members. So there was this famous service tax case which was going on, and the club people were arguing that we don't have to pay any services because whatever services is provided by the club to the members is like internal services. We are not providing any services to an external person, right? Like under Contract Act, we know that contract should be between two competent persons. But in this club and association, there is only one person. So you don't have a right to charge service tax. But then the High Court, the Supreme Court said, no, you can still charge service. You cannot charge service tax is what it was held in service tax law. So under the GST law, they should not get trapped and the government should lose the revenue. That's why they've included here saying that any activities or transactions other than an individual to its members for cash or deferred payment is also a supply. So we will call this as a club or association component. So when any club or association is there, they providing services to its members is liable to GST. That is also one of the supplies. Third part, that is 7(1)B, talks about import of services. If you import any services for a consideration, import of services for a consideration, whether or not in the course or furtherance of business. So 7(1)A में हमने क्या देखा कि there has to be consideration and it should be in the course or furtherance of business. Now 7(1)B is saying consideration should be there, Baba, but even if it is not in the course or furtherance of business, it is a supply. What? Not everything, only import of services. So if you import anything on which there is a import of something for which there is a consideration, but it is not in the course or furtherance of business. Matlab, even for your personal use, if you use something, still it is liable to GST. जैसे मैं I'll give an example. You are downloading songs. Okay. You are downloading some songs from Spotify. Spotify is a company which is registered outside India. They have a rights license they have taken from the Indian music companies and they are hosting it from outside India to India. Now you are using your mobile and you are not into any business. You are a student. You are not doing any supply. Now, if you download something, you have to pay charges, say subscription charges or anything. It's a consideration. So now when you're paying consideration, you're falling under this wherein it says import of services for a consideration. Now, whether or not in the course of furtherance of business, whether you're using it for a business or no, GST is applicable. Huh? It means for any Spotify we download, we have to pay GST. It is liable to GST. I never said that you have to pay GST. I'm just saying that it is liable to GST. Who will pay the GST? We'll decide later on. क्योंकि आप अगर Spotify से डाउनलोड करते हो तो आप तो GST पे नहीं करोगे. So the government is imposing tax on the supplier itself. Okay. So any supplier who is providing online information database access retrieval services to anybody for a consideration, then that company will pay the GST. So import of services for a consideration, here it should be for a consideration, but even if it is not in the course of furtherance of business, it is still liable to supply. Then third is 7(1)(c), the activities specified in Schedule 1, which is made or agreed to be made without consideration. First, we saw that it should be consideration and it should be in the course of business. Import of services, we said, even if it is not in the course of business, it's fine, but consideration is required. Now we are saying, boss, come to Schedule 1. Here, even if there is no consideration, still it is liable to GST. Correct. Spotify is a subscription-based model, so GST is applied only if we subscribe. Correct. If we do not subscribe, say you have a free version, so there is no consideration there. On that, there will not be any GST. What is vice versa? Vice versa is the reversal of this. So the activities by a person to its members are vice versa, which means members activities by a person, that is the association, to its members, or members are also providing some services to its association. Suppose they are providing some professional services to the association. Now there is an association. Now association has members, and generally association will provide services to its members. Now this association has to get its annual accounts done. It has to get its audited. One of the members is a chartered accountant. He is providing some services of auditing of this association, and he certifies it. Now when he charges his bill, should he pay GST or no? He can say that no, this is an association, it is only within us. Now you don't come and ask me GST because there are no two persons in a association. Because that was what was the decided under Calcutta Club, sir, that in a club, the members and the association are one. Because if there are no members, there is no association. All the members join together and form this association. So members and association are one. There is no service tax. So that argument you should not take. That's why they're saying that you provide any services to the association, still you have to pay GST. Because that is also specifically said that it's a supply. Residential welfare, a better example for clause AA? No. Residential welfare is a little different. Club or association only is better. That too, residential welfare, clearly it is a supply because there is no argument. But if it's a trade association wherein you are not paying anything on a regular basis, such associations is what is tried to cover under 7(1)AA. What is business? What is not in the course of business? We will understand the definition of business shortly. So in point AA, who pay GST? Member or association? Who is the provider of service? Generally, in an association, the association or the club provides services and it collects the consideration. So always understand who is the provider of service pays the GST. Now, how to decide who is the provider of service? I am providing some service. The receiver of the service will pay me consideration. So generally, the person who is paying, who is receiving the consideration is the one who is providing the service. So he will pay the GST on it. On sale of goods, we offered cashback to customers. For example, goods value of 1,000, we offered 1,000 cashback. We give bill to 10,000 with GST. Does GST apply for cashback? Can we claim GST for cashback from credit? No. So if you have supplied value of goods for 10,000 rupees and you have charged on that, it means it's a transaction value is 10,000 rupees. So you will collect the consideration from him on the whole thing, but you will receive less consideration because you will be giving a cashback. So GST will be levied on the full 10,000 rupees, and then the cashback only is a rebate kind of a thing. So had you given a discount, say on 10,000 rupees, you have given a discount upfront, then you can reduce that discount from the invoice and collect GST on the balance one. But since you have not given it as a discount, but has given it as a cashback, then you have to collect GST on the whole value. Gym membership also supply? Yes. That is also supply, because you're giving him a right to enter the gym, right? Paying on the membership fees. That's also example of a good example of a license, that you're giving him a license to enter your premises and use it for 1 month. That is a supply of service. Explain last point once again. Okay, last point says that activities specified in Schedule 1 made or agreed to be made without a consideration. So we said that in 7.1a, everything should be with consideration, but under Schedule 1, that is 7.1c, we are saying that the activities specified in Schedule 1, which is made or agreed to be made without a consideration, also is liable to GST, because what are all the general conditions? It should be for a consideration, but the exclusion is here, which says that if you provide any specified services which is described under Schedule 1, Schedule 1 में लिस्ट दिया गया है, अगर ये चीजें आप बिना कंसिडरेशन करते हो तब भी सप्लाई माना जाएगा. Every kind of membership and subscription or supply, yes, every kind. Kishore Reddy, through credit note issuance, you cannot issue a credit note because there is a restriction on usage of credit. You cannot issue a credit note. You are given cash back, so GST will be applied on the whole thing itself. What are the activities specified in schedule? Shall we go there directly? We'll go through the definition of supply and then go through the list of Schedule 1. Deferred payment means today you're providing a service, today you're providing a supply, but payment you're not receiving now, you're receiving later on. That is called deferred payment.
Sir, I clear my second A point. Association and the member is common, so does not pay GST. But two different, so association pay GST.
Yes, it is different. It was treated as one and under service tax law. But under GST specifically, they have said that anything done by the association for its member is a supply. So it is a supply and GST is payable.
Okay, sir.
Is this cooperative society also included?
Cooperative
Societies, sir. As they will be two in the same nature of club.
Correct. Correct. There also it will be liable to GST. If a CA is providing services to the association, then CA will charge. Correct. CA will charge and he will pay to the government. Buying something on EMI, it is not deferred payment. In case of EMI, what happens is you are buying that goods, but payment you are deferring. So it's a facility of loan. So the primary activity is supply, but EMI is a financial facility which you are giving. So EMI supply will happen when you buy the product immediately.
Where is partnership firm is liable to pay GST?
So everybody are liable to GST. Every person is liable to GST.
Sir, valuable consideration means
Which one?
valuable consideration. Valuable consideration. Consideration.
Okay. Where is it mentioned? It's just mentioned consideration, right? Valuable okay. Deferred payment or other valuable consideration, which means that now when you're giving some services for association to the members, now member could either pay that money or he could pay something else. Like he could give something in exchange for it, for which there is a valuable consideration. So that is also included.
Sir, can you explain the point B, sir?
Point B, okay. Import of services. Not able to clear the drawings. Import of service says that if you're importing any services, okay, now you have to construct a house and you have calling an architect. Now architect is sitting in USA through this CAD CAM on his laptop itself, he's giving you a design. Okay, you are paying this architect for the services. Now this house is your personal house, not used for business. Now this personal house, which means that it is not in the course or furtherance of business. Now, even though in such case it is for personal use, you are importing that services of the architect. On that architect services which you are importing, now you read import of services for a consideration, whether or not in the course or furtherance of business, GST is liable. Got it?
Yes, sir. Even if the company it's not a architecture or construction company, even it also import something like this, it is also considered the same, right, sir?
Who is not a company or
Say example, a company is in a similar way, they are going to construct a building for their office. They are getting an design from foreign. Even there also need to be paid, right?
there also it has to be paid. There
Okay.
definitely, because it is in the course of business. But even if it is not in the course of business, still GST will be payable.
Okay, so thank you, sir.
Sir, please explain deferred payment. I got a little bit confused after that EMI example.
Correct. Now, when you supply something and you are saying that you will get the payment later on, like today, if I supply something, I will not get the money immediately. I will raise the invoice, payment will come to me later on. Correct. So that is an example of a deferred payment. But in case of a EMI, what happens? I will give you the product. The money will come to me by the banking company. And this banking company is providing the EMI facility to the customer, saying that I will pay your value of the car. You pay me monthly fixed amount. In that, your interest also will get covered. So that's a financial arrangement.
Sir, EMI and installment are the same thing, no?
Yes, EMI and installment are same. Now, there are two things. When I buy a car, so the dealer is not giving you the EMI facility. The bank is giving you the EMI facility. That is where financial loan which is given by the bank to you. Now, other things, say you're buying a small product, you're buying some product from a FMCG company or a wholesale showroom. Now, showroom is saying that you pay me deferred payment. There is no financial facility. The showroom itself is saying that, okay, you pay me the payment later on. That is a deferred payment.
Sir, in this import of services has been given specific attention. What about the import of goods? Sir?
Import of goods is not given. So import of goods, if it is consideration, only then it is liable to GST. If you're importing goods without consideration, the customs will not let you clear it. Customs will say that whether for consideration or no, this product, I have a standard rate called as customs tariff rate. On that, you have to pay the duty. So you will have to pay the duty on import of goods. Import of goods specifically, it's not included here because import of goods is covered under Customs Act. So there by default, it will get covered.
So that means here import of services, there a physical movement of goods is involved. That's why we are tracking it on customs. Import of service, how could we find out if I am a residential and I am making an service agreement with someone resident outside country? How could a government get track of that, sir?
Now, the government is not doing a license facility. Government is saying that I have given you the law and they've said that you do a self-assessment. So they are trusting the citizens of India, saying that you will comply with the rule of the land. So there is something called as knowledge of the law of the land. It is assumed that once a law is passed, everybody knows it. So they are considering that, okay, if there is any such transaction, the receiver will pay the GST. Whether he pays or not pays, that comes under the assessment or adjudication when the officer can find out through his own other ways, through his banking channels, that whether you have done any such transaction or no. He will do the assessment and find out later on.
So for actually that import
Thank you, sir.
case, yes, sir. I mean, for the import case, the person should be, we should have a GST number, right? Actually, for personal use, if you're using, he may not have a GST number. Then how can it be charged? Because
Correct.
the service provider isn't, actually he's in a foreign country.
Correct.
So how
So,
can it be charged then?
so service provider will not charge. There is something called as a reverse charge, which we will learn in the next
Yeah,
chapter.
reverse charge mechanism also, the person should have a GST.
Correct. So
Without
it
that,
is
how it will be
like
charged?
a taxable event when we say. Similarly, we have a threshold limit for registration. That threshold limit is for supplier. Now, if the person is a receiver, then as soon as he receives something, then he is obliged or is obligated to take registration and pay GST.
That means you are saying services case, if it is more than 20 lakhs only, it will be applicable.
For provider, but in this case of a receiver, the 20 lakhs will not apply. So as soon as he
Yeah, yeah.
imports anything, the threshold limit will not apply. He will have to register and pay GST.
That means if I am getting a service from some actually from foreign country or maybe through my friend in US,
Correct.
and if I am
Paying customs.
paying GSTs up, I have to take the registration, then only I can do that.
Correct. Correct.
Okay,
But we will
okay.
also be careful that this is there in the law. But the government understood the practicality and they have issued a notification wherein they have exempted it, saying that if you are importing and if your value is less than 20 lakhs, then you don't have to pay. Okay, so we'll have to see that notification also practically to see whether we have to pay GST or not. As of now, 7 says yes, we have to pay. We have to see the notification. If there is a notification, then we don't have to pay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So that means under 7, they have brought that kind of transactions into the scope, and then through notification, they have exempted, given reliefs for residential
Correct.
imports, right?
Yes.
Uh, Thank you, sir.
There will be two taxable events: supply of goods and supply of services. Yes. So there in one transaction there can be supply of goods and supply of services. Both are possible.
Sir,
That is when
EMI
we will
in
go to the
which
composition scheme. When we read composite supply, you will see that both supply of goods and services are involved.
सर EMI किस में आएगा सर? Import और सर्विस में आएगा क्या?
EMI.
हाँ सर.
EMI तो एक फैसिलिटी है
Install.
कि जब आप सेल करते हो कुछ भी, तब उसका पेमेंट आपको EMI में पे करना पड़ता है. ठीक है, तो वो इंपोर्ट में नहीं आता है. इंपोर्ट तो बाहर से जब आप खरीदते हो उसे इंपोर्ट कहते हैं.
Okay sir. Like as a builder services.
करेक्ट. बिल्डर सर्विसेज, जो भी सर्विसेज है, जो भी सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स है, उसके पेमेंट EMI में हो सकता है. तो कुछ भी चीज हो जो है, एनी ट्रांजैक्शन कैन बी दैट पेमेंट इज डेफर्ड थ्रू एन EMI.
Thank you sir. Got it.
Okay, I think we are running short of time. We'll just take a break of 5 minutes. By 4:05 we will assemble back. So can we start? Okay. Continuing our discussion on supply, we have covered 7.1a, 7.1a, 7.1b. And now we have to cover 7.1c. What does 7.1c say is, it doesn't define supply, it doesn't include supply, unlike 7.1, 7.1a, 7.1b, brought in some new meaning to the term definition, are included under the scope of definition. But 7.1c says the activities specified in Schedule 1 made or agreed to be made without the consideration is also supply. Okay, so saying that so 7.1c also is now including saying that the activities specified in Schedule 1, which is made or agreed to be made without the consideration, is also supply. We'll go to Schedule 1, but understand that whatever is there in Schedule 1, without consideration also, it is liable to GST. Then 7.1 capital A. First, what we saw is 7.1 small a. Now 7.1 capital A. Again, when some atpata or odd number comes in, it should understand that it was an amendment which came in sometime. 7.1a says that where certain activities or transactions constitute a supply in accordance with the provisions of subsection 1. So 7 subsection 1a, a, b, c. Whatever transactions falls under those 4 clauses, they shall be treated either as supply of goods or supply of services as referred to in Schedule 2. As one of the participants was asking, what is the relevance of supply of goods or services? As I was explaining, that classification and finding out the rate is important. That's why the proper classification, there is confusion, like supply of software. Is it goods or services? That will get clarified under Schedule 2. And restaurant services, is it supply of goods or services? That will be classified as service under Schedule 2. Lease, license, rental, either it is supply of services, goods, it is classified as services under Schedule 2. So Schedule 2 gives you the clarity saying that whether it is goods or services. Then 7.2, section 7 subsection 2 says that notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 1, the activities or transactions specified in Schedule 3. So Schedule 1, what is Schedule 1? Let us recapitulate 1, 2, 3. Schedule 1 is there to give you the activities on which, even if there's no consideration, it will be supply. Schedule 2 gives you classification of goods and services. Now comes Schedule 3, which says that activities specified in Schedule 3 shall be treated neither as supply of goods nor supply of services. 3 says that whatever you have discussed in 1 and 2 is fine, but come to me. If you come to me and see that your nature of service is specified under me, then you are outside the scope of GST. 2 things are outside the scope of GST. Activities or transactions specified in Schedule 3, or such activities or transactions which is undertaken by the central government, state government, or local authority in which they are engaged as public authorities. So those activities in which the government is engaged as public authorities and which will be notified by the government shall be treated neither as supply of goods nor supply of services. Alcoholic liquor for human consumption is outside the scope of GST. The license which is given for these alcoholic people, they said, no, that is not there, no, under the exclusion of alcoholic liquor for human consumption. That was clarified through this, saying that the license is given by the state government authorities. That is also outside the scope of GST. Okay. Then 7.3. 7.3 says that subject to the provisions of 1A or 2, the government has a special rule, a special power wherein on the recommendation of the council, they shall specify certain transactions and they can treat it as supply of goods and not supply of services, or they can treat it as supply of services and not supply of goods. So a special power is given that to avoid litigation, to avoid confusion. some transactions, the government will say that this is only specified, this is to be considered as supply of goods only, not a supply of services. And this is to be treated as supply of service only, not as goods. This is there in the law, but no notification has been passed for this thing because there is no such need which has occurred. So that is the scope of supply. Now we will get into understanding of in detail the various terms, various forms. तो पहले जाते हैं हम सप्लाई को समझने के लिए. फर्स्ट हमने क्या किया, व्हाट आर द बेसिक प्राइमरी कंडीशंस क्या है सप्लाई के लिए, कि सप्लाई किसका होगा, सप्लाई होगा ऑफ गुड्स और सर्विसेज फर्स्टली, करेक्ट, और बोथ, सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स और सर्विसेज और बोथ. फिर क्या होगा, फॉर अ कंसिडरेशन, सप्लाई होगा फॉर कंसिडरेशन. फिर इट शुड बी इन द कोर्स और फर्दरेंस ऑफ बिजनेस. तो 7(1)(a) बोलता है कि आप जो भी सप्लाई करते हो, ये सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स हो सकता है या सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विसेज हो सकती है, कंसिडरेशन होना चाहिए एंड इट शुड बी इन द कोर्स ऑफ फर्दरेंस ऑफ बिजनेस, करेक्ट. 7(1)(a) says what, that supply definition is it should be supply of goods or services, it should be for a consideration, and it should be in the course of furtherance of business, correct. Then we saw some exclusions. What is that first exception? 7(1)(b), which says that for importation of services, the condition of in the course of furtherance of business is not required. So even if it is not in the course of furtherance of business, still it is supply. Mind you, only one leg is gone out, for consideration, still it's there. Second is no consideration exception, but it should be in the course of furtherance of business. That is 7(1)(c), which is covered under Schedule 1. So Schedule 1 says that any supply of goods or services in the course of furtherance of business without consideration will be still liable to GST. Then 7(2) came in and said that transactions are outside the scope of supply is Schedule 3. So Schedule 1, Schedule 3, Schedule 2 is classification. ठीक है. Parameters of supply. What are the parameters of supply? Firstly, supply includes supply of goods or services for a consideration in the course or furtherance of business. That is 7(1)(a). Then activities or transactions of a club or association is there under 7(1)(a). Then importation of services for a consideration, even if it is not in the course of business, is 7(1)(b). And then supply without consideration is there on 7(1)(c), read with Schedule 1. What it excludes? Non-supplies, which is covered under Section 7(2), which is read or detailed in Schedule 3. And activities to be treated as supply of goods or supply of services is given with 7(1)(a), read with Schedule 2. Okay. Inclusion, exclusion, then classification. We were deliberating whether schedules are important. Schedules are very much important because the supply definition will be incomplete with this schedule, because schedule is being given so that in the act, in those sections, these schedules cannot be mentioned. So a separate schedule is given. So schedule 1, 2, 3, there are only 3 schedules and all the 3 are important. The emphasis of explaining this in different ways is to grasp and understand this, because it is very fundamental to understand supply and then proceed further.
Sir, what is mentioned in Schedule 1, 2, and 3?
What we have just now discussed, madam, Schedule 1 describes those transactions which are supplied without consideration. So they will give you, say, disposal of goods. It will give you that disposal of goods, which means that when you dispose of some goods, even without consideration, you have to pay GST. Like that, it will specify a list. Then Schedule 2 will specify a list, and it will tell whether the following should be classified as goods or services. Then Schedule 3 will give you those list of activities like services by a employee to employer. It is there under Schedule 2, which will mean that when an employee is providing services to the employer, on that GST is not payable. Okay.
Okay, sir. Sir, in Schedule 3, mention the balance sheet.
No. Schedule 3 under the Companies Act is different. Schedule 1, 2, and 3 of the GST Act is different.
Okay, sir.
Can you explain 7.1a once again? 7.1a says that activities to be treated as supply of goods or supply of services. I will read the section again. 7.1a says that where certain activities or transactions constitute a supply in accordance with provision of subsection 1, which means it says that first, whether your activities falls under supply, you have to satisfy that first. So first go and check yourself whether you are satisfying the conditions of supply under 7.1. If you are not satisfying, don't enter 7.1a. You have to satisfy that test. If you are giving a satisfaction, yes, 7.1a is satisfied, then come to 7.1a. I will tell you whether the activities should be treated as supply of goods or supply of services. Come and refer Schedule 2. I will give you the classification. That is 7.1a. Please explain the import of service for consideration, even if not in the course or furtherance of business. So when you import something without consideration, no, are you saying without consideration, import of services for consideration, but not in the course of furtherance of business? So if you are importing anything for your business, definitely you will pay GST, no doubt, correct? Because if a business is doing any importation of goods, you will pay customs duty and GST. And if you're doing any importation of services, on that you will pay something called as a reverse charge, which means on import of services, supplier is not paying, but your receiver is paying the GST. Now, if you're a non-business person and if you're importing some services, still GST will be payable. The practical examples are when you download something, when you use foreign apps. So they will have to register your OIDAR services, which is Online Information Database Access and Retrieval Services. If somebody is providing this OIDAR services, then he is obliged to come to India, appoint somebody in India and register it and pay GST on it. Okay, because the liability is there, it is there on the supply. If that person is providing any services to a person who is registered under the GST, the receiver will pay. But if he is providing to a unregistered person, that unregistered person will not pay, so the liability will fall on him. Okay, it's only on out of so many services, only OIDAR is this condition where the supplier has to pay. Apart from OIDAR services, if you are importing anything, then you will have to pay GST on it. OIDAR, the full form is Online Information Database Access and Retrieval Services. Google, Facebook, any kind of emails, any kind of music which you are downloading, any type of games which you are playing, all of that falls under this OIDAR services. 7.3 explain with examples. 7.3 is saying that if there is any confusion, so yeah, if there is any confusion in the future, then the government can classify that this is supply of goods, not supply of services, or just say this is supply of services or not goods. That power they have. In 7.1AA, members are different from association. Yes, in 7.1AA, members and associations have been divide and rule. Once you divide, then you can rule. So they have been divided. What happens in case of free application? In case of free application, mind you, there is no consideration, no consideration. Even in case of import, there is no consideration, then no supply, no need to pay any GST. The basic is consideration. Even in import, if there is no consideration, no GST.
Sir, point number 3 में some example given.
Point number
3 में a supply of good and not as a supply of service. मतलब goods है लेकिन service नहीं.
हाँ, जैसे अभी सॉफ्टवेयर का किसी ने पूछा था, तो गवर्नमेंट को चाहिए कि उसका क्लैरिटी चाहिए, तो वो लोग इसके डाल सकते हैं कि सप्लाई ऑफ सॉफ्टवेयर विल बी अ सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स, नॉट अ सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विस.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now let's proceed with, we understood definition, we understood the 8 forms of supply, right? Now there are some examples for you to understand what we have already understood. Mr. A buys a table for ₹10,000 for his personal use, and he sells it after 10 months of use to a dealer. This, will it be considered as a supply? This will not be considered as a supply, as this is not done by Mr. A for the furtherance of his business. If he is doing it for a business and then he is supplying it, then it will be treated as for the furtherance of business and it will be treated as a supply. But he is buying it in his personal nature and he didn't want to sell it, but he had to sell it, right? When you buy it for personal nature, your objective is not to do business. So if you have sold it anytime, still it is not a supply. Second example, Mr. B provides free coaching to its neighborhood students as a hobby. So it is a educational services, but still it is not considered as a supply. Why? Because this is free coaching and it does not involve consideration. So it is outside the scope of supply. So supply 7(1)(a), try to connect here. It covers under the 8 terms, but consideration is not there, so it is not a supply. When you buy a new mobile, okay, a new mobile worth 10,000 rupees is purchased in exchange of an old mobile along with a monetary consideration of 2,000 rupees. Say old mobile you give, they will give you a new mobile and you have to pay 2,000 rupees. This is an example of exchange. People who are having confusion with what is a barter and exchange, you give old mobile and you get some new mobile, that is barter. You give your old mobile plus 2,000 rupees and get a new mobile, that's an example of exchange. When a laptop is supplied for 30,000 rupees along with the barter of printer that is manufactured by the recipient is an example of barter. You give a laptop and get a printer, that is an example of barter. Last very good example, Katrina Kaif uses the services of a makeup artist from USA. GST is liable and it is to be paid under reverse charge mechanism on such service. What is reverse charge will come later, but basically I'm trying to say that on import of services by a Indian person for a services provided outside India, it becomes import on which it is a supply and GST is payable. Now, everywhere we use the term consideration. 7(1)(a) says that one of the important legs, one of the important criteria to be met, that it should be for a consideration. What is the meaning of? So Katrina Kaif will pay. Yes, in that example, Katrina Kaif will pay. Consideration means payment. Okay. Firstly, what is consideration? Consideration बोल रहे हैं. Consideration is payment, that you have to make a payment. Now, this consideration can be in non-monetary terms. Okay, that is, it could be either in money, which is called monetary terms, and when you say it can be non-monetary, it can be in kind also. जैसे barter बोला है, so it can be in barter or it could be any other modes also. You don't have to necessarily pay money. You can pay in any other modes. If there is some consideration which you're receiving, it could be tangible, intangible, it could be visible, invisible. Anything which you're receiving in return, that is a consideration. Third important point is consideration need not always flow from the recipient. It can be made by a third party also. As long as you're receiving consideration, it is a consideration. I am supplying goods to you. Okay. Now, since I have supplied to you, you have to pay me. Now, you did not pay, your friend from some other state has paid me. Will it be treated as a consideration? Yes, that will also be treated as a consideration, because even though the supplier has provided the services to a recipient, but the recipient is not always necessary that he should pay. He can tell somebody else to pay, right? That person who's paying, he is paying for this supply. If he's paying for some other supply, then that's a separate transaction. But for this supply, if he's paying, right, that is a valid consideration that is accepted. So consideration is not necessary that it should flow from the recipient. It can be flowing from a third party also. Now, in the consideration, there is a definition under GST law which says that subsidy given by the central government or state government is not considered as a supply. Specifically, they've said any kind of subsidy which you're receiving by the central government or state government is not to be treated as a supply. Now, how will this work? I am supplying some bags to a school. I am charged 1 lakh rupees. I have to charge 1 lakh rupees. School is saying, no, I cannot pay 1 lakh rupees. Okay, I will reduce it to 90,000 rupees. Saying, no, we cannot pay 90,000 also. Then they go to the government and get subsidy from the government. Now, government says, don't reduce the quality of your bags. Give that to the agreed price of 90,000 rupees. School will pay 30,000 rupees. Excuse me. School will pay 30,000 rupees. 60,000 rupees the state government will give as a subsidy, which means I have got consideration of 30,000 from the school and 60,000 from the government. So the value of supply for me is actually 60,000. So I have to pay 90,000, 30 plus 69,000. But consideration says that whatever subsidy you receive from the government, that is not to be included for the purpose of consideration. So you have to pay GST only on 30,000. Okay? Because it's a subsidy only from the central government and state government. Sometimes you receive subsidy from government bodies, government organizations. You have to be careful whether it is a central government or state government. Only then you will get the benefit. Now, I have supplied something. I wanted something and I did not have the money. So I went to Melinda Gates Foundation. They have given me subsidy. Will I include that in the consideration or no? Can we say consideration means something in return? Yes, very good, Aradhana. Consideration means something in return. You should get something in return, or the other term used for consideration is there should be quid pro quo, which means quid pro quo is a term which means I give something and get something in return. That is called as quid pro quo. Yes. So if I get subsidy from Melinda Gates, it should be included because Melinda Gates Foundation is not a central government or a state government. So it will be included. I will not get any exclusion for that. So if I'm supplying 30,000 worth of things to the school, 60,000 I'm getting subsidy from Melinda Gates. On the 30 plus 60, 90,000 rupees I have to pay GST. A deposit given. Okay, I am. Let's understand what is a deposit that I am buying some goods for which I'm making payment. Now the supplier says that before I supply something to you, I don't know whether you will make payment to me on time or no. I don't trust you. So you have to give a deposit of 1 lakh rupees, then only I will supply to you. So I give them a deposit of 1 lakh rupees. Now this deposit of 1 lakh what I've given, is it a consideration? It is not a consideration. So it is just a deposit. I may get interest for it or I may not get interest. So this is a deposit which is there with the supplier. Now supplier will supply goods to me for which I will pay the consideration that is getting offset. So this deposit is not a consideration. A deposit given in respect of supply of goods or services shall not be considered as payment unless what was the reason the supplier says give me this money? He says because I don't trust you, and happens that at the initial time I make the payment, on the 10th month I default the payment as he had anticipated. I cheated him. Now when a receiver doesn't pay, supplier will adjust the deposit. So then unless the supplier applies such deposit as consideration for the supply, then it becomes a consideration. Till then it does not. A deposit till 9 months it is a deposit. 10th month I made a supply, he did not make the payment, I've adjusted that, then it is treated as a consideration. Clear? Then consideration has to be quid pro quo, that is something in return or something for something. That is the important criteria. So what is company donates 50 benches to the government school as CSR activity? Will the company need to pay GST? Right. So when it buys chair, it will have to pay GST, right? Or is it done to have a good name in locality where I operate? Yeah, whatever. It is a CSR fund. So CSR we'll get through in input tax credit. That input tax credit on CSR is not available. So you will buy from outside and supply it to the school. You will not get any consideration because it's a CSR activity. So you are not getting consideration. You will not pay any GST, but it is getting covered under Schedule 1, correct? But are you doing disposing it off? It is not disposal because you're not giving something which you have used and given. You are buying it and expending it as a CSR expenditure. So it will not get covered under Schedule 1 because Schedule 1 specifically says that disposal of goods will get covered under Schedule 1. So if you're disposing something without consideration, then it is a supply. But in this, your example of CSR funds, it is not disposal. So GST on outward supply is not there. But what happens to the input tax credit? Just think over. When we come to ITC, we will discuss. Correct, Hardik? It is disallowed under Income Tax Act. So what happens under GST? Think over. When we discuss input tax credit, we'll address this. Okay. Proceeding further, consideration, there are some clarifications. So this confusion, what we have, it also comes to the lot of taxpayers. Now the taxpayers then raise a concern to the GST department, and GST department, what it does is, whatever clarifications and things like that are there, and they're seeing that there is a different treatment given by different tax authorities in different states. They come up with some circulars, and these circulars clarify a lot of the queries what the industry has. Now these circulars are also relevant for your exam, and any important circulars which have been added, okay, before the cutoff date for your exams, the time, the notification time or the updates time, those cutoff circulars, I would suggest you to read through, and any new circulars which is there in your study material will be highlighted in bold, okay, which is, they'll be giving clarification. Like in your study material, you'll see on this topic, there are 3 clarifications which have been issued. 2 are in normal font and 1 is in bold. The bold one means that it's an additional thing, which was not there in the previous study material. So you go through that in detail you could expect some importance for that thing. Okay. And in the statutory updates also, if there's any new circulars, it will come in. So you read through it. Now, in this consideration, there was a clarification which was issued saying that is donations a consideration? Generally, what is donation? You make payment. Does the receiver give something in return? Generally, they don't give, right? Because you give donation and they say just thank you. Okay. So generally, they are one-sided. The receiving entity does not give back anything, right? So you give a donation, they don't give back anything. However, if there exists a quid pro quo, matlab, there is a obligation saying that I will give you a donation, but you have to do some services to me. Or you don't have to provide direct services to me. You have to provide indirect services in terms of some marketing for me. So if somebody was asking this question that they should be known in the local market, so you give some donations. So there is an obligation on the part of the recipient of donation to do something. Then it's a supply. जब मैं कुछ डोनेट करता हूँ, ठीक है, दान देता हूँ, लेकिन वो चैरिटेबल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन या ट्रस्ट को बोलता हूँ कि आपको मेरा नाम लिखना है कि मैंने आपको दिया है, ताकि क्या होगा, मेरा मार्केटिंग होगा. तो एक ऑब्लिगेशन क्रिएट हो जाता है कि जो रिसीविंग एंटिटी है उसे कुछ रिटर्न में कुछ काम करना है. सो देयर इज अ क्विड प्रो क्यू ऑन द पार्ट ऑफ द रिसीविंग एंटिटी, तब वो सप्लाई हो जाएगा. ठीक है. लेकिन जब थोड़ी जगह होता है कि नहीं, आप हमको कुछ बोलिए मत, फिर भी आपका नाम तो हम डालेंगे ही. जैसे आपने हमको कुछ वैन डोनेट किया है तो हम लिखेंगे डोनेटेड बाय. तो वो चीज अलग हो जाती है कि जब आप लिखते हो सिर्फ डोनेटेड बाय, उसका पूरा मार्केटिंग या इतना सारा कुछ करने की जरूरत नहीं है और उसको ऑब्लिगेटेड नहीं है, आप अपने हिसाब से कर रहे हो. देन देयर इज नो काइंड ऑफ क्विड प्रो क्यू. तब वो सिर्फ वन साइडेड डोनेशन हो जाएगा, वो सप्लाई नहीं गिना जाएगा. ठीक है. What I was explaining the third part is when you donate something and the receiving entity says that we have a practice to just mention that yes, this is donated by Infosys Foundation, this is donated by Wipro Limited. Just mention of that doesn't mean that there is something which I'm marketing. As a matter of a public recognition, as a matter of gratitude, I'm doing it. This is not a quid pro quo. This is my general practice. Then there is no supply element in this. The GST is not leviable when all the following three conditions are satisfied. What are these? Gift or donation is made to a charitable organization. Payment has the character of a gift or donation. And the purpose is philanthropic. Philanthropic means there is no commercial gain. मैं खुले मन से दे रहा हूँ, मैं अपने gratitude क्या full इसके लिए दे रहा हूँ, not to show any publicity or marketing. When the purpose is philanthropic, that is, it leads to no commercial gain and not advertisement, then GST is not leviable. Even if the product is repaired, then in that case, if they have brought a new one, it is not disposal. If it's an old one and they've repaired it, still there is no commercial guarantee which is given, so it is still a disposal. Scholarship also is in similar lines itself. Like when you're giving some scholarship, then it is not a quid pro quo because you're not expecting something, so it will be in line with donation. Philanthropic, जैसे हमने बताया था, philanthropic is खुले दिल से, you are doing it for your voluntary purposes and not for any marketing or any other commercial gain. Is there definition of charitable organization? Yes, क्योंकि exemption में we will read the definition of charitable organization. There you will read what is a charitable organization. Okay, second clarification is in terms of artworks. So an artist is there, it like a painter. Now a painter has done some artworks. Now he is exhibited them at galleries or exhibition, and nothing is received by the artist for display. So is there a supply? The circular says just display करने पे आपको कुछ supply नहीं कहा जाएगा. So there is no supply. Only when someone buys it, then the actual supply takes place and applicable GST is payable. Until then, it is not a supply. Okay. Next clarification is in terms of no claims bonus. Now, what is this no claims bonus? You have to understand. जैसे आपकी गाड़ी की इंश्योरेंस होती है, you have taken a vehicle insurance. You have taken an insurance कि कुछ unfortunate event हो जाए, तो then you should not suffer loss. So you have to file a claim with the company, insurance company, and they will give you the claim. Now you have been driving very well and there is no kind of accident or anything which has happened, or even if it has happened, it's a minor. You didn't go to the insurance company for it. You have not claimed anything in the first year of insurance. Second year, when you go for renewal, the company will give some deduction from the insurance premium and say that this is a no claims bonus deduction. 50 रुपए देते हैं. गाड़ी के केस में, टू व्हीलर के केस में 50 रुपए देते हैं. अब इस 50 रुपए को भी गवर्नमेंट ने नहीं छोड़ा. गवर्नमेंट जा रही थी इन 50 रुपए के पीछे, सेइंग दैट ये जो है जिसने इंश्योरेंस लिया है उसने क्लेम नहीं किया है, इसके लिए आप उससे 50 रुपए दे रहे हो, ये भी सप्लाई है. ठीक है, क्योंकि डायरेक्ट सप्लाई या इनडायरेक्ट सप्लाई कुछ भी हो, जो इंश्योर्ड है वो आपको इंश्योरेंस कंपनी को सप्लाई कर रहे हैं, इसीलिए आप 50 रुपए दे रहे हो, उसके ऊपर जीएसटी पे करो. तो इसके लिए क्लैरिफिकेशन आया है कि एनसीबी विल बी कंसिडर्ड एज अ कंसिडरेशन फॉर सप्लाई प्रोवाइडेड द इंश्योर्ड टू इंश्योरेंस कंपनी. क्या ये लगेगा? इसके लिए आंसर मिला है नहीं. देयर इज नो सप्लाई सिंस द इंश्योर्ड और द कस्टमर इज नॉट अंडर अ कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल ऑब्लिगेशन नॉट टू क्लेम. ऐसे नहीं कहा गया कि तुम क्लेम मत करो. आपका क्लेम नहीं है तो वाजिब है कि आपने नहीं किया तो मैं आपको बेनिफिट दे रहा हूं, लेकिन मैं बेनिफिट दे रहा हूं इसीलिए आप नहीं क्लेम करो, ऐसा कुछ कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल बांधा नहीं है आपके ऊपर कि आप करो ही मत. अगर आप, क्योंकि क्लेम नो क्लेम बोनस मिलता 50 रुपए के लिए, अब उसके लिए किसी को अगर क्लेम नहीं करना है तो फिर उसकी ये गलतफहमी है, क्योंकि अगर क्लेम करना है तो वो बड़ा अमाउंट क्लेम करेगा ही. ठीक है, सो देयर इज नो ऑब्लिगेशन फॉर द इंश्योर्ड टू नॉट क्लेम. उसका कुछ एक्सीडेंट नहीं हुआ है इसलिए वो मेरे पास नहीं आया है, तो उसका ऑब्लिगेशन नहीं है. सो देयर इज नो सप्लाई विच इज गेटिंग इन्वॉल्व इन दिस. ठीक है, जिसकी वजह से जो मैं सप्लाई नहीं कर रहा हूं तो मैं जो डिस्काउंट दे रहा हूं दैट्स अ ट्रांजैक्शन इन मनी, तो उसके ऊपर जीएसटी नहीं लगेगा. ये क्लैरिफाई किया. Claim is compulsory? No. Every year you should claim? No, not necessary. Yes, somebody has raised their hand.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please tell me.
I have a doubt on subsidy. Suppose if I bought a house whose cost is at the price of 2 lakh, the cost of that house is 2 lakh, but the owner of that house ready to give me in 1,80,000 due to, because he has some emergency for cash, and government announces a scheme that for every homeless person, people they will provide 30% subsidy. Then at what price we will claim subsidy? At the 2 lakh or the amount which we bought?
No, the subsidy will go not to the individual. It is supposed to directly go to the builder. Okay. So the builder is getting the subsidy and it is coming from the central government directly. So on the value of subsidy, there will not be any GST.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Next clarification is in terms of no claims bonus. Now what is this no claims bonus? The what is mentioned in Schedule 1, 2 and 3? Yes, somebody has raised their hand.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please tell me.
I have a doubt on I'm asking at what price that builder claim that subsidy. जो उसका प्राइस था 2 लाख या जिसमें उसने हमें बेचा 1,80,000 उस पर।
तो हर एक सब्सिडी का कैलकुलेशन होता है। Say it is the subsidy for any kind of a construction, उसके लिए सब्सिडी कैलकुलेशन अलग होता है, which is not within my knowledge. So that calculation they will have to do and get it from the government. Please explain no claim bonus. Okay, no claim bonus is one wherein I am having a insurance of my two-wheeler. Now, when I take this insurance, I will go for a claim if there is any accident. Now, if there is no accident, next year when I go for renewal, the insurance company gives me a discount in terms of no claim bonus discount. Now, this no claim bonus discount, the tax officer have seen saying that there is so much of no claim bonus which you are giving. If you're giving something, it means you're receiving something. Now, what are you receiving? You are receiving a obligation or a commitment from the insured saying that they will not claim. So you are giving them, so it's a supply. So that was the thing which was going under various tax authorities, and they were levying penalty, taxes, and notices. So then the insurance industry came to the GST council and said that, boss, what is this? I am giving a no claim bonus so that many people should come and take more insurance, and you are levying GST on this also. Come on, give me some clarification. So then the government said that, boss, all you tax authorities, all the field formation authorities, assistant commissioners, listen to me. I will give you clarification. This no claim bonus, no. This is not something which the insurance company is giving as a matter of compulsion. And neither there is a compulsion from the insured that they should not claim every year. Then why they are taking only for formality? Yeah, no. So if there is any kind of a accident which is happening, they will come. That time I will not give this no claim bonus deduction. But if they are not, they are driving it very well, they are not meeting with accident, so there is no claim bonus. There is no obligation on their part that they should not claim it. Okay, so there is no contractual obligation. So I will say that this is not a kind of a supply which is being happened by the insured. It's just as a matter of coincidence that he is not doing anything. So I'm giving a no claim bonus. So on this no claim bonus, don't charge GST. So this is the clarification what they have given.
Sir, I have a doubt. Question is, sir, I am speaking Hindi.
Yes, please.
एक कॉलेज की स्कॉलरशिप 90% है, मतलब कि आप 90% से ऊपर लाएंगे तो आपको स्कॉलरशिप मिलेगी, और स्टूडेंट लेके भी आया तो सर उसको तो स्कॉलरशिप मिल रही है और कॉलेज को कंसिडरेशन के रूप में उसके मार्केट लेवल अप हो रहा है ना, तो ये कंसिडरेशन के अंदर ही आएगा ना स्कॉलरशिप?
कौन दे रहा है स्कॉलरशिप? कॉलेज दे रही है।
हाँ, दिस टाइप
कॉलेज दे रही है ना।
हाँ सर।
तो ये सप्लाई कैसे होगा? क्योंकि कॉलेज दे रही है। अगर कॉलेज को कुछ आता है तो कंसिडरेशन है, कॉलेज से कुछ जाता है तो कंसिडरेशन नहीं होगा ना।
सर इस टाइप का क्वेश्चन फाउंडेशन लेवल में था इसलिए।
अच्छा,
यस सर, और उसके अंदर था कि एक कंसिडरेशन ही है।
ओके, तो ये स्कॉलरशिप कहाँ से मिला? कॉलेज से मिला है या किसी और दूसरे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से मिला है ताकि आप बच्चे को यहाँ पे पढ़ाओ? करेक्ट।
यस सर।
तो ये स्कॉलरशिप अगर नॉन गवर्नमेंट एंटिटी से है तो फिर इसे जीएसटी लगेगा, बिकॉज एनी काइंड ऑफ सब्सिडी जो है वो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट और स्टेट गवर्नमेंट से आती है तो जीएसटी नहीं लगता है, बाकी सब प्लेस में जीएसटी लगता है।
ओके सर, थैंक यू सर।
So in case of this non-claim bonus, will that satisfy? We are looking at consideration. Will that satisfy a supply definition, sir? Section 7 definition. As here, the insured will not be having an not doing it in the course of if I am an individual and I am claiming, even I would be insuring myself or my vehicle which I have, my bike, the continuous years. For that I might be claiming no claim bonus. Will that be constitute a supply? Only
It
if
will not be
constitute.
constituted. Correct. It will not be constituted. But imagine a case where there is a company which is like a company which is having delivery of its vehicles, like Domino's Pizza. There they have using the vehicles only for business. So will there, in that case, will you say it is supply?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
It will be treated as thought like a supply, but there also it will not be a supply because they are not obligated to not claim it. So ultimately it will not be a supply.
Okay.
One more example for no claim bonus. I think no claim bonus comes only in such example, but there could be cases of health insurance. When you have a health insurance with a company, all these no claim bonuses comes only with insurance, not with any other kind of businesses. So if you've got an accidental insurance is a good example, wherein yearly you have to pay 3,000 rupees. Now I've paid 3,000 rupees this year. I have not gone to hospital. So next year, instead of paying 3,000 rupees, they're giving me a discount and saying pay me only 2,800. So is this 200 rupees a service I'm providing to the insurance company? Actually, no, because I did not go to the hospital by God's grace. So if I'm not gone, that's why I'm getting this benefit. Not that I was sick and because of this 200 rupees, I didn't go. That is not the case. So it is not a supply what I am doing. It's just my luck that I didn't go to the hospital. Yeah, another question by Tushar is that I got an accidental insurance of 100 rupees. Then I did not claim during the year. Then it will not be considered as a supply? No. See, you have taken an insurance. Now you have not materialized it. So if you made with the accident only, then it's a supply? No. Insurance companies, it's a contract wherein that for the year, if something happens, then I will pay you. If it doesn't happen also, I will collect premium from you. Correct? So if they collect premium, they're giving you a coverage for the whole year or whatever is the term. They are giving you the protection for that year. That itself is a supply. Now, whether that event happens or not happens, they are still covering you. So there is a supply which is happening irrespective of that accident happening or not happening.
Sir, can you explain deposit point?
Yeah, what is the doubt? Did you understand deposit point correctly? What have you understood? See, deposit is one when you make a payment, not for supply, but as a deposit. Now, this deposit is not linked to your supply, so deposit is not treated as a consideration. But when this deposit gets offset or get utilized with the supply, then it will be treated as a consideration. 1 लाख रुपए का deposit आपने दिया है रिलायंस को, रिलायंस ने आपको डिस्ट्रीब्यूटरशिप दिया है. अब जब डिस्ट्रीब्यूटरशिप दे रहे हैं, आप खरीद रहे हो प्रोडक्ट्स और पेमेंट कर रहे हो, डिपॉजिट ऐसे के ऐसे ही पड़ा है। लेकिन 1 साल बाद आप जब माल खरीदते हो और आप पैसा नहीं देते हो, तब रिलायंस उस डिपॉजिट को एडजस्ट कर देता है आपकी सप्लाई पे, तब वो कंसिडरेशन कहा जाएगा। और पूरे 1 साल के लिए तो वो डिपॉजिट रहेगा। जब आखिरी दिन आपने पेमेंट नहीं किया और उसको डिपॉजिट को उसने सप्लाई के साथ एडजस्ट कर दिया है, तब उसे कंसिडरेशन कहा जाएगा। Okay, so we were now on this verge of clarifying all the clarifications. Next is understanding the definition of business. So a lot of confusions were there that what is business? Is it a business, not business? Things like that. We will understand the definition of business and we will proceed further with other things. Fixed deposit is a transaction in money, like check what you give like that. You give fixed deposit. So fixed deposit is a transaction in money. It is not a consideration as such. So if I give a no claim bonus and then net 800 is collected, so 800 is the value of supply on which GST is to be paid, not on 1000, because it's like a discount, and discount is reduced from the value of supply. It is a allowable deduction for considering the consideration. Okay, thank you very much. We will meet again in the next class and continue the definition of supply. Okay, next time will be a little fast because people are saying that I'm taking a lot of questions. So we'll reserve 2 time slots for question and then we'll proceed.
Sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, when we get your notes, sir, PPT notes?
For the first session, I've already shared, but I think they have not uploaded. I will talk to the Board of Studies and see that by tomorrow it will get updated. The first.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Definition of business under GST.